He further notes that the proposed Jacob's image is identical with the form of God on the throne of glory. And Orlov references Ezekiel 1, 26 and 27. Read those verses. Read that. He is seen to denote a bodily form, even that of God, that is the divine glory. This is Jacob, the one whose name was changed to Israel. There's traditions that Israel was his heavenly counterpart, and that Jacob united with his heavenly counterpart as Israel. That's fascinating, isn't it? The hypothesis about the identification of Jacob's image with the divine glory returns us to the imagery of God's kavod, with which the face of the ladder of Jacob and 2nd Enoch are both closely associated with. Enochic materials correlate the face of God, his kavod, with the heavenly counterpart of Enoch himself. In 2nd Enoch, the face of the Lord seems to play an important role in the description of Enoch's heavenly counterpart. 2nd Enoch 39, 3-6 depicts the patriarch who, during his short trip to the earth, retells his children his earlier encounter with the face. And how he describes this, he says, "This earthly part of me here that you see now, I'm back here. But there is another part of me in the heavens. It's on the throne of glory. And that's a fiery, bright being. But it's not this one here that you see." It's absolutely stunning. He describes his pre-existent self to his children, is what he's saying. He says, "I've seen the Lord, and I've seen his extent through the heavens," and so on and so forth. So the earthly Enoch, a human being created just like yourselves, he says, and his heavenly counterpart, the one who has seen the face of God, it appears that Enoch describes himself in two different modes of existence: as a human being who now stands before his children with a human face and body, and as the one who has seen God's face in the celestial realm. Absolutely intriguing, isn't it? The similitudes also seem to entertain the idea of the heavenly twin of a visionary when it identifies Enoch with the Son of Man. The Son of Man, in the Christian tradition, has been equated with Jesus Christ. Properly so. But the Son of Man is also identified with Enoch, Ezekiel, Daniel, and so on and so forth as well. We are all sons of man, is what this idea is getting to. Orlov doesn't come to that conclusion. That's my idea. But that's the logical extension of the conclusion of these magnificent traditions and literatures and ascension visions that have been described. A creature of flesh and blood could have a heavenly double or a counterpart. That's James Vanderkam's conclusion. And the heavenly counterpart seems to conflate with the image of God's kavod, his glory. And then he talks about this angel Israel, who is the heavenly counterpart to Jacob. The process of establishing twinship. Now this is very interesting. Judas Thomas, the twin in the New Testament, comes to mind just off the top of your head, doesn't it? The process of establishing twinship with the heavenly counterpart might be reflected in the initiatory procedure of becoming a Sarhapanim, that is, one of the angelic princes of the divine presence, or the divine face. This is the Markabah mysticism. The installation of a visionary as Sarhapanim seems to correlate with the procedure of identifying a visionary with his heavenly counterpart. In 1 Enoch 71, Enoch is transformed and identified with the Son of Man in front of God's throne. And it's also hinted at in the biblical account where Jacob is attested as one who saw God face to face, and the Prince of the Divine Face is another name of Enoch Metatron. Oh, this is fascinating. In the important material in the ladder of Jacob, similar to Enoch, Jacob's eyes are similar to the eyes of the transformed Metatron. They are emitted flashings of lightning. That's fascinating. So there's all kinds of light, heat, glory, power, the kavod, because the earthly counterpart unites with the heavenly counterpart and becomes divine. They become one, like Jesus prayed in John 17. The visionary mystics described this process with several of the great patriarchs in the Israelite tradition. This is, as Leonore Leet has shown, this is the Kabbalistic secret of the doctrine of the divine Son, where it is the entire assembly of Israel that is to become divine. As the Zohar puts it, the Knesset Yisrael. So this idea of studying the biblical traditions that the Deuteronomist reformers, according to Margaret Barker and now Andrei Orlov and Alexander Gulutzin, there's a lot of scholars now understanding that the Deuteronomist reformers have taken the old Israelite traditions of Enoch and Jacob and Moses, and they've taken them out, and they've put their own tradition in that says no man cannot see God, and no man cannot become God. The earliest Israelite traditions, as now shown in some of their writings, such as the books of Enoch, show that this tradition was lost. And we have great news for you as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. Joseph Smith has brought this information back through his own revelations and restorations of priesthood keys and authorities. We aren't studying it like we should, though, which is too bad. So this is kind of a call to arms, my call to arms, of both Mormons and non-Mormons. It's time to start doing some homework, because what you're going to find is going to absolutely astound you at how powerful this principle of a restoration of the ancient gospel of God really is. And it shows us where our destinies lie. This human earth life is a part of it, but it is not the final. The final extends on into the eternities after this life, just exactly like Joseph Smith taught. So this is the value of studying the biblical scholars and the biblical scholarship. Andrei Orlov, you must get this man's writings. He's phenomenal. Margaret Barker, you must begin to read her. She's sensational. Eugene Sach's new book, just out, A Great Mystery, the mystery of the Jerusalem Temple and the At-One-ment and the Embracing Cherubim, and the principle of how this unification of the human with the divine occurs through marriage. As on earth, so in heaven. Everything has its earthly and heavenly counterpart. People, customs, liturgies, and institutions, and teachings, and ordinances. What is done here is a type and a shadow of what is to be in heaven. And what is in heaven? What is in heaven? Who is in heaven? This is but an extension in a lesser, more gross material form of God's glory. We are already a part of it. That is the good news. Jesus Christ has come to unify us. He gave us the atonement, the at-one-ment, so that we can become one with God. That's the idea of the atonement. That's the very meaning of the word. Yes. That's a phenomenal doctrine. So anyway, thanks for joining me in these Backyard Professor videos. Remember, have a great life.